Welcome to GouldFish on Games, where it's time to jump into the latest and greatest space fighter, as fear is for the weak, mercy is for the foolish, as only power, strength and victory matter to the Super Stardust. Made by Bloodhouse and published by Team 17, it originally came out for the Amiga 1200 in 1994. This, if you can't tell, is the updated CD32 release that came out a year later. Inside the box we get a manual that spends more time going over the 1200 version and the floppy disks than going over the updates for the CD32. The typesetting also seems a little bit off, as this heartfelt anti-piracy notice has been cut off. The game itself comes on a CD and is held in a standard jewel case, and as we can see, most of this box was empty space. The developers might just have been fans of Star Wars, based on the text crawl that outlines the plot, in which the evil Professor Shudmond has returned and again plans to take over the universe and kidnapping the Princess Void Levi. And the power of the CD32 was put to good use to show this newly created 3D rendered video that shows a very Star Trek-like interface for the baddies, but also the powerful looking Panther PX2. That is launching to take on the evil Penguin. And after getting past a very in-depth main menu, we arrive at the map screen. This allows us to play the 6 levels per world in any order we like, and after selecting a level we finally arrive at, well, what is basically an asteroids clone, but a very good looking one at that. This is a great example of early use of using pre-rendered 3D graphics in a game, as everything was animated and ray traced before being imported into the title. The original Amiga 500 game used the very same system, but it really pops with the higher colour count that the AGA chipset could provide. The main levels very much follow the classic asteroids pattern. Larger asteroids, when taken out, will leave behind smaller, faster versions of itself, and then depending on the initial size you might have quite the rock collection on your hands. And eventually, when the smallest explodes, they have a chance of leaving behind a token, which includes getting extra points, a flame burst, or even engine power-ups. There are 8 in total, and we'll check out most of them as we go through the rest of this video. These rocks won't go down easy, and the number of shots to make them explode is based on their colour and the type and level of your firepower. Thankfully, there is a full suite of weapons in the game, but you won't get them all at the start. You'll have to earn them by taking out weapon ships and collecting their bounty. These weapons can also be upgraded by picking up the gun token. Each gun has its own maximum level, and you can freely pick which one you're currently using, so you can make best use of your currently available firepower. But be careful, as when you die your selected gun will lose some of its power. The upgrade system also has a cool feature where you get to decide which of your weapons gets upgraded.
Power-ups rerouted to bouncer.
So you can be using a fully powered up 3-way while directing your gun tokens to the bouncer. And these weapons include the standard 3-way, the bouncer, the plasma, the flamer, and the burster. And there's also a set of missiles which will act in tandem with your primary guns, but will pick out their own targets. You might think with all that firepower that the Panther might be a bit of a glass cannon, but it's actually pretty well protected. There's a user triggerable shield. On top of that, the PX2 can also take a number of direct hits that will drain its main energy reserves. These can both be recharged by collecting either the shield or the energy tokens, but don't expect them to be topped up between levels, as that would be going too easy on you. The weapon ships are not the only mechanical nasty that you will face, as a range of ships will try and take you down. From the basic fire spitter, to the cloaked predator that has this sweetest effect. To the mines that will show up and try and ram you. There are lots of ships that are ready to take you on. These and extra waves of asteroids will get announced by the klaxon. And when you hear it, you know there's more work to be done. And you better be quick, as each level is timed. If you don't take them out in time, then you'll have something much nastier on your hands, as you'll be swarmed and attacked by multiple enemies that will give you even less time to react than normal. Each of the worlds will also end with a boss fight, which is normally a bullet-spewing behemoth, so fancy flying and use of your shield will be vital to take these down. With those taken care of, you can't rest, as it's time to kick in the warp engines to go to the next world, which results in the game's party piece, the tunnel sections. These are fast moving into the screen shoot 'em ups that throw lots of nicely scaled items at you. And just when you think you've sussed it all out, larger ships and creatures will show up and throw even more stuff at you. These really wowed gamers back in the day, as this type of effect was normally done via video playback, but it looked and played just as well on a standard Amiga 1200. Even the original Stardust on the Amiga 500 had these sections. They might not have looked as good, but they were still very impressive. To balance out the fast and frantic gameplay, every few worlds you get a choice of doing some bonus sections. These are played underwater, and as such your ship controls more like Thrust or Lunar Lander, and your goal is to collect as many points and extra life tokens as you can, and then try and land on the exit.
Extra life.
The content of the game between the CD32 and the 1200 is more or less identical. The CD32 got a number of video cutscenes dotted throughout, and the music has been replaced with CD-based soundtrack, as you pretty much would expect. But it takes a trained eye to spot the differences in game, and the only real noticeable one is that there's a thruster effect for when you move. That was quite different for the PC release that came out a year later, that got the very imaginative name of Super Stardust 96. This is the demo release that allowed you to play 2 levels, the boss and a tunnel section, and from this we can tell it's mostly the same game, just with the graphical effects turned up to 11, with more detailed backgrounds and particle effects when things explode. And amazingly, for a game released in 1996, this was actually for MS-DOS and not for Windows. The Super Stardust namesake returned with the PS3 with the release of Super Stardust HD, and if you're hoping for a high-def version of the Amiga or PC release, then you might be a bit disappointed. as this is now a twin-stick shooter that plays like a cross between Asteroids and Geometry Wars. It really doesn't have all that much in common with the original game outside the name. This is a title that thankfully bucked the trend of games having wonderful graphics and effects, but poor gameplay, as each part of the game plays just as good as it looks. And if you get a chance to play it, you really should, but I will warn you, the game is not very forgiving. Even with the password system, it's a real challenge, as the codes are generated just after you beat the boss, and thus you're going to have to replay those tunnel sections to get to the next world. Unfortunately, the modern version is the only one that you can find online, so if you want to play the classic, you're going to have to track down a copy. And I think you should do so, because it is a fun game. And until next time, I was the GouldFish, that wasn't just asteroids on steroids, but super steroids, and this was GouldFish on Games. Thank you for watching my video. I do hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please consider using your warp drive to like or subscribe to the channel. Or you can reroute your power-ups to check out some of the other videos that you can find on the screen right now. Thank you again, and goodbye.